Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another Tools for Perseverance. This is Dr. Jessica Wright, and I'm so excited you could join us. Today is going to be the first part in our series on how to minimize conflict. So in this time, those of us that are in a confined environment, we're sheltering at home with other people, there might be more conflicts than usual that arise. Or if you are, just honestly, if you're going to work or you're staying home, we have so much stress on us these days that conflict is going to be something that gets brought up a lot more often than in our traditional work and our traditional lives. So I want to give you a tool, and this tool was actually developed by Dr. Brene Brown, and it is a really, it's an exciting way to think about your conflicts and a way that you can tangibly reduce them. So we're going to be talking about something called chandeliering, emotional chandeliering. So all of my clinicians may, especially those that are involved in OB work, may have heard of the phrase chandelier pain. Chandelier pain evolved or was created from pelvic inflammatory disease. It's something called a chandelier sign, where you're giving a patient an examination, and when you touch the place that is painful or that's infected, the patient jumps up off the table so high that they, quote, touch the chandelier. So let's talk about what chandelier pain is. You can think of it like if you've got a broken finger. Some of us, when we have pain or discomfort, we might have a broken finger or another thing that is hurting us that we really don't want the rest of the world to know about. So chandelier pain might be something that it's really, you can't hide it. The slightest touch is going to cause a big reaction. So even if you're putting on a brave face, for example, if you've got a broken finger, you might be able to sort of put on a brave face if we're just sitting and talking. But if I reach over and I touch your broken finger, it's going to be extremely painful. You wouldn't be able to hide that. So chandelier pain, you can't hide it. And the key with it is it's a small touch, a slight touch that causes a big reaction. So that's the key with this, is that something small sets off a big reaction. So emotional chandeliering is going to be when someone has that, it's a small event that occurs that has a disproportionate emotional reaction. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. You drop a pen on the floor and someone explodes in anger. You drop or you say something that you think is benign and someone gets highly offended or highly emotional about it. That can be thought of as emotional chandeliering. And in normal circumstances, I do a lot of work to coach people to reduce the amount of emotional chandeliering that they see in the workplace, because these sort of big overreaction, it's kind of like crying over spilled milk. And especially I work with leaders, and with leadership, having that sort of emotional chandeliering where you have a disproportionate reaction to an event that occurs is something that really damages leadership. It damages how people see you, how people view your leadership. They end up dismissing your leadership. They end up walking on eggshells. Converting that to the time that we're experiencing now, we all might be on edge a little bit. Our sort of emotional chandeliering might be happening a lot more often because we are carrying significant amount of stress from the constantly developing and uncertain times around us. And so let's talk about that. That's the series that we're going to be going through the next couple of days. I was talking about how to avoid this chandeliering or recognize it and discharge it, I suppose. I'm thinking of the word. You're going to want to take its power away, right, is what I'm trying to say. And that's what we'll talk about over the past couple of days. We're going to be talking about how to recognize the emotion that you're feeling, and then specifics on how you're going to tell yourself a story about what happened, and then rewrite that story. And so that is going to be the key to this whole process. And for today's sort of mini skill for us to practice, is just going to be talking about how to give ourselves permission to acknowledge. So y'all remember the first step is recognizing the emotion. Some of us need a permission slip in order to recognize that emotion. So we're going to talk about writing permission slips. This is a funny permission slip written for a kid to get out of school. Dear Jude, please allow Brian to be dismissed at 11:45 a.m. He has Red Sox fever and needs to visit Fenway for the cure. Please note that if they lose today and tomorrow, please expect grumpy child syndrome to be present on Monday. Fondly, Carrie, the insane baseball mom. So how amusing, right, to have a slip like this written for you. So the thing is, sometimes it can be really valuable to have written or verbal express permission to feel something, because it allows us to acknowledge the emotional state that we're in and allows us to experience fully the emotion that we're in. So let's talk about writing an emotional permission slip. So recognizing our emotion, writing those permission slips. So I recommend that you would use one of these, a general one. I am writing to give permission for, I'm Jessica, so for Jessica to experience whatever emotion may arise today. To do this activity, I would literally write this on a Post-it note and stick it in my pocket. Right now we have an abundance of paper towels, so I might jot it down on a scrap of paper towel and stick that in my pocket. And then as I'm going throughout my day, if I feel all of a sudden that things are becoming overwhelming, I'm reaching into my pocket, feeling it, knowing that I can have a moment of feeling overwhelmed, helps me to get there, right? Helps me to get to that emotional state and actually experience the full emotion. Because like we talked about with emotional intelligence before, experiencing the emotion is the only way to discharge it, right? Processing it, physically walking, physical movement, writing, or talking through it, crying, all of these things are going to be valuable at discharging that emotion. As we talked about in the first session on emotional intelligence, having a time where you ignore the emotion actually causes the amygdala and the rest of the primitive brain that's trying to send you your messages. Remember, those emotional intelligence tells us that idea of an emotion is a chemical message that our brain is trying to tell us something. So, if we've got that emotion, that signal that's coming to us, the only way to make it stop sending the signal, right, for us to stop having that emotion, is to experience it fully, and then it dissipates. And so that's a general permission slip that you might write. I am writing to give permission for Jessica to experience whatever emotion may arise today. You might also want to do a specific one, right? If you know you're going to be in a situation where you need to experience anger, and you want to have that experience so you can discharge it, you might need to put a little slip of paper in your pocket that says Jessica has permission to get angry and express her anger today, right? Or Jessica has permission to feel overwhelmed, and expressed how overwhelmed she is today. Whatever it is that is going to be valuable to you, that's what you're going to do, is write yourself a permission slip. So that's today's challenge, is for the first step of sort of getting through conflict while we're all in this state together. The first step is really recognizing that emotion, and today's challenge is to write yourself a permission slip for emotion, an emotional permission slip. So in the chat box, go ahead and write a general permission slip. So if you'd like, because it might be very personal to write one, write it to me. Give me permission. I'm writing permission for Jessica to blank. Go ahead and give me permission. It'll give you an example of a practice time to be able to write out a permission slip for your emotion. And I can't wait to talk to you again tomorrow, where we'll go through the next step for how to make sure that we're preventing that emotional chandeliering, and handling the emotional chandeliering that can occur. I can't wait to hear what you have to say.